A returnee from the days of old that anyone who's watched the anime will very fondly come to remember, it is SKD00 Sagodo, with a kit returning of Beam, Double Hold, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Captor, which buffs the heat stat of all equipped parts on the build if the target is unable to defend. Now, as I mentioned, it is really nice to see Sagodo make that comeback, and it's going to be even nicer to see him and Gokudo together, as they are two peas in a pod, but they're still missing member number 3, which is the swine of the trio, Hakado, and all three of them together make a series of 3 that is based around the journey of the West, Gokudo being Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, Sagodo being the Kappa, and of course, as mentioned, Hakado being the swine. But, that aside, Sagodo does come back bringing some relatively decent moves and kits to his arsenal with his return. Beam, of course, is a very high damaging optic move. Unfortunately, it does not have pierce damage, but it does have the higher damage output at ×2 bonus at damage bonus at 30% charge, and ×3 bonus at 100% charge. Hold is a very solid ailment move, however, as it debuffs enemy heat and cool by 25%, and then on top of that, also prevents the opponent from defending. So in this case, this goes part and parcel and hand in hand with his leg ability, Captor, which buffs his heat stat even higher if the target that he's abusing can't defend. So this means after he inflicts it, he's going to be progressively moving faster to ensure that it stays on the target. So if you use him as a pure set, the ailment might get a little redundant, unfortunately, which will kind of hurt into his overall viability. But if you maybe swap the arm out for something different, say for instance, a sword or a rifle or a power rifle or a beam sword, something of the like, then he can really start making use of that extra speed so he can take off more pot shots and more hits before the enemy can really make use of countering it or even putting up a defense against it. For that reason, I would rate Sagodo about a 5 out of 10. He is overall relatively balanced across the table for a fierce battle. About 3100 HP for the head, about 2850 for both arms, about 2900. It's squishy, but still manageable. About 3050, about almost 3200 for the legs. Also, I'm not going to say squishy in that sense, but relatively in that nice sweet spot, I guess you could call it. High shoot resist, of course. No, high melee resist, of course. My mistake. Mobility honestly does leave a little bit to be desired at the 561, and the low evade of about 651 does also kind of hurt him, so he's not going to be dodging or grazing a lot of attacks, and he's not necessarily going to be the fastest on the team there is, but what he's good at, he does very well. His arms, on the other hand, do have some relatively solid stats. The base power on his right arm at about 1130, his left arm at 1313. So even though they don't deal pierce damage, they are ailment based, which still makes up for it much more so and more viably to use as an ailment fighter on the team. As mixed parts, I would rate him just a little higher at a 6 out of 10 for the reasons stated above. If you are going to use Sagodo for anything, aesthetically he does have that nice skull theme going on with his arms, which will fit relatively nicely with most folks. But with the ailment of hold on the team to prevent no defend, that does guarantee that if a hit lands, it's going to be a critical hit, which further bolsters Sagodo's viability as either a pure set or as a mixed parts that you use just on the team.